Good day. I'm Joseph Noah. I'm a medical doctor and a biochemist, and I'm the author of Document X, Direct Evidence of God's Existence. So now we're going to look at creationism. You'll recall that this idea is based on the literal interpretation of the book of Genesis. But this is not a scientific theory. It hasn't got any theoretical framework on which this idea is built. It's basically built on a religious commitment. And there's no evidence to support creationism. In fact, it flies in the face of the basic sciences such as geology, astronomy, chemistry, genetics, biology, and so forth. There are other serious difficulties with this idea. If Adam and Eve were the first human couple, the question is, how did they spawn the human race? It implies intimate sexual relations amongst close family members, which means a continuous interbreeding. And any geneticist will tell you continuous interbreeding leads to a weaker and weaker offspring. So a single human couple would have procreated themselves out of existence. The second difficulty with the creation theory is that there's no way a single couple can explain the diversity of the human race, how we've established different human populations. You cannot ascribe this to a single couple. And if you look from Quranic perspective, you find, according to the creationist theory, and some people or other people believe, that Adam and Eve was created in heaven. And because they committed the sin, they were dispelled from heaven and inhabited the earth. Now, if you look at the Quran, you find that once you are in what we call Jannah, paradise, you can never be expelled from it. And this is clear from 1548. Then, according to the Quran, man was created from clay or extract of clay. So creationists don't deny this. But if Adam and Eve was created in heaven, then it means that clay must have been in heaven, and clay is an earthly entity. So which means that heaven cannot be a dimension which lies outside the human experience, which contradicts the verse in the Quran which says no human being has experienced paradise. And this is clear from 32 verse 17. Liberal creationists, because of the overwhelming evidence of evolution, admits to animal evolution. But they draw the line when it comes to humans. Humans were specially created by God. However, we can no longer scientifically sustain the idea that we as humans did not evolve through the same evolutionary mechanisms as all other organisms. Let's revisit pseudogenes. Recall that pseudogenes are genes that were once active in ancestral species, but they were subsequently disabled in descendant animals because it was no longer needed to sustain life. Now, the question is, according to creationist theory, Adam was created perfect. This begs the question, why create Adam with a vitamin C gene, then inactivate the gene? Why not omit the gene in the first place? And you find there's more than 2,000 of these utterly useless pseudogenes in man and in chimps. So it is almost like creating a human being with a wing on top of his head, a tail, and an eye underneath his foot, and realize, well, this is useless, and then decide to omit them. Why not omit them in the first place? Why create a human being with such unusual features, or with such unnecessary features? Pseudogenes are incomprehensible under the creationist vision, but makes perfect sense from an evolutionary perspective. And then the Adam and Eve creation theory doesn't explain to us the presence of pseudogenes, as I said earlier. It doesn't explain why the vitamin C gene was inactivated by exactly the same mutation in all primates, including humans, and why it was a different mutation in the guinea pigs. Creation theory doesn't explain any of these things. We also spoke about the transposable elements, which, remember, these are elements that move around in the genome. And there are millions of these transposable elements in chimps and humans, and they are at exactly the same site, and they're exactly the same genetic material. And this is all evidence pointing towards common ancestry. If you look at chapter 29, verse 20, where the Quran says, go all over the earth and see how God originated the first creation and how He evolved the later creations. So this is an illuminating injunction for us to explore the world. And this is exactly what scientists are doing 14 centuries later. They are looking for the science of life, and they're finding clues of how life originated and how life developed beneath the oceans, in caves, in rocks, and everywhere. So if Adam and Eve was created, or Adam was created miraculously, there would be no clues of how he was created, and this verse would lose its meaning. In fact, this verse challenges the cherished belief of creationism. Now, I just want you to think for a moment. If Adam was created miraculously 6,000 or 10,000 years ago, and you were there as an observer, what would you have observed? A weird scene indeed, right? A being appearing from thin air. If Adam was created instantaneously, many questions arise. Presumably he was created as an adult. So, was his consciousness switched on immediately? If that is so, he must have been terribly confused, because our identity, our mental status, is shaped by years of intellectual and physical development, social interactions, life experiences, memory. The same applies to our motor skills. We first crawled, then we walked. It required physical and brain development to fine-tune our motor skills, and this happened over a period of time. So Adam had none of these. In actual fact, Adam was mentally and physically was an infant. Now the question is, how did he find his way about? How did he communicate? How did he eat? How did he move? If you really think it through, it becomes absurd. In conclusion, despite mutational changes over geological time, the utmost precision with which DNA has been duplicated has ensured that a large part of the original DNA in ancient life forms have been preserved in subsequent generations. In other words, this faithful transition of DNA from the first stirrings of life throughout the natural world explains the similarity in design, protein chemistry, and why all creatures use the same universal genetic code. The Quran reminds us of this similarity in the following verse. In 6:38 it states, "There is not an animal that walks the earth, nor a bird that flies on its wings, that does not resemble yourself in structure, behavior, and evolutionary origin." The entire evolutionary process, from the chemicals of the earth to the first prokaryotic cells, their whole branching patterns from fish to amphibians to reptiles to mammals, culminating in man, is beautifully summarized in the following verse, in chapter 71:17, which says, "God has raised you up from the earth in the form of a genealogical tree." Now, I've inserted the word genealogical based on context and the many other verses on evolution. Now, these two verses capture the essence of Darwin's theory of common descent, announced by the Quran 14 centuries ago.